Y'all know about my Biggie walls, who you thought kicking the door was for, but that's my heart.
Biggie had his foot on everybody's necks from a musical standpoint. We needed him, and he had the game in the chokehold.
We was them dudes. We was all trying. You know how New York is. It's like whoever's at the top, we got to try to get past them.
That's real, yo. I ain't exaggerating at all, man. The more money you make, the more problems you get. And jealousy and envy is something that comes with the territory, man. A lot of people, it's just negative energy, like my man Puff say.
Back in the mid-90s, when competitiveness in the rap game was reaching its peak, two of the biggest rappers on the East Coast, the Notorious B.I.G. and Nas, clashed at the top and became part of the biggest or one of the biggest rap beefs in history. Subliminal shots were fired on songs, interviews and even album skits. Battle rhymes, diss songs, trying to quote-unquote murder someone on their own song. It's all in the spirit of the competition. And every year a new rapper was making their claim for the throne. The story begins in '93 when Big and Nas first met, before they made their debut with classic albums on which they were working on at the time. Nas already had a single out called Halftime, which was on the Zebrahead soundtrack in '92. Big first made his appearance on the Supercat song Dolly My Baby. He was even in the music video with Puffy screaming Bad Boy before the label was founded. Nas was already cool with Puff, who even let him drive his Range Rover before Big had an album out.
So Puff drove his new Range through Queensbridge projects, he let me drive it before Ready to Die hit.
On June 29th, Big dropped Party and Bullshit, which was the debut single that put him on everybody's radar, including Method Man from the Wu-Tang Clan.
I had heard the song, I love the song, but I forgot it was that one little breakdown part in there. And when he came on stage, it was 100 Brooklyn niggas with him anyway. 100 Brooklyn niggas with him. So that part happens in the record, and niggas really looked like they was fucking fighting. So these niggas is up there fighting. And then Big, as soon as Big hit him with the chill, that's when I felt like this feeling come over me like they just killed this shit. Watch what he do.
Yo, chill. Can we just all get along so I can put Biggie's on your show? Put the Dom Perignon.
The clan was working on their debut album Enter the Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers at the time. Nas met Big at the Palladium on July 23rd when he was performing with Tupac and Redman, who already had projects out. Pac took Big on his first shows and helped him to get bigger and more respected in the game. Even wanted him in the group Thug Life, but that unfortunately didn't happen. Nas and Big became closer over time. They hung out and freestyle together before Big reached superstardom. There's even a story of Nas rapping Big to sleep during a freestyle session.
I heard, Nas, that at one time you did a freestyle for so many hours and a person listening to that freestyle was Biggie. Is it true that Biggie fell asleep because your freestyle went on and on and on?
Well, we had his house in Brooklyn before he blew up. Maybe back then.
A year later, Nas finally got to release his debut album Illmatic, which came out on April 19th and peaked at number 12 on the US Billboard 200 chart, selling 63,000 copies in the first week. It failed to achieve significant commercial success even with 5 singles and 4 music videos. But it went gold 2 years later on January 17th, 1996. For hip-hop heads, it became one of the best and most important albums of all time. It sold over 2 million copies in the US as of February 6, 2019. Now it was Biggie's turn to make his debut. He wanted both Nas and Method Man on his upcoming album Ready to Die. They all had love and respect for each other in the beginning. Their status in the game was more or less the same, and they were all trying to build up a successful solo career. RZA, who's the leader and producer of the Wu-Tang Clan, didn't want any of the members to collaborate with other rappers on different labels or different albums unless the song was produced by himself. But Meth ignored it and recorded the song The What with Biggie.
I was like, all right, I'm with it. But knowing that I couldn't do the fucking song because RZA at this point in time was like, yo, we not splitting this money with nobody. Don't do no songs with nobody unless they doing songs with us. The money stay here.
I had no idea I was going to be the only guest appearance though.
Because, you know, a lot of cats was feeling big back then, you know what I mean? From the party and bullshit, from his freestyles and BK and all that. But, you know, he reached out to me. I guess, who knows? You know, maybe he reached out to other dudes and they ain't answered the call quick enough. Who knows?
The What ended up being the only song on Ready to Die with a feature. The collaboration with Nas unfortunately never happened. The Queensbridge MC apparently was too busy at the time. He had to do all the music videos, the shows and the promotion for the Illmatic album. The song never happened. The album came out without him on September 13th and shipped 57,000 units in its first week of release, peaking at number 15 on the US Billboard 200 charts. But the sales for Ready to Die didn't drop like Illmatic's, and it went gold in just 2 months. A year later, in 1995, Biggie went double platinum, and in 2018 the album was certified 6 times platinum in the US. At one point they decided to do a remix for the song Gimme the Loot, which was one of the most popular songs on the album, and Nas was supposed to be featured on it.
Shoulda did that remix verse on Gimme the Loot for Biggie.
Weren't you and Big supposed to do a record together, but something happened, like the verses didn't get recorded?
I got too high. I was in the studio and Big was rolling up some of that chocolate for Brooklyn. I was zonked out, yo. There's pictures of that session out there. I think, yeah, we were supposed to do a couple of songs, but I was gonna remix some stuff for Ready to Die.
There were also rumors about Nas not being able to come up with a verse that is up to par with Big's, and that Big was just writing the beat perfectly, making Nas's verse look whack in comparison. He allegedly told Big that he wasn't feeling the beat and that he couldn't flow to it. He left the studio, promising to come back the next day. He ran away and never showed up again. But to this day, I have no clue where this rumor came from.
Why not come back the next day, Nas?
Still high.
Still high?
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that Nas had taken off his verse after being unhappy with it. He has done it on the Firm album actually, on the song Desperados. It originally had Nas, Foxy Brown, Cannabis, Nature and AZ on it. But Nas, quote-unquote, was too scared of Cannabis and didn't want to get outshined on his own project. Cannabis outrhymed everybody on that song. So in the final product you don't hear Nas and Foxy on it. But the original version is still floating around the internet.
The niggas that used to have a nigga a little nervous was like B.I.G., Pac,
Right.
even Cannabis, like Eminem. Them niggas used to have you like, if we go at it, dog, we gotta go hard.
The only rappers he was scared of were Pac, Big, Cannabis, Eminem and also Big L.
Big L bodied it.
The biggest thing in the world.
He
scared me to death. Yo, when I heard that on tape, I was scared to death.
Yeah.
I said, yo, there's no way I could compete. If this is what I gotta compete with, I said, there's no way.
There are also rumors about Nas rewriting his lyrics too often, and Biggie was getting mad at him for taking too long. But I don't know if we should trust these rumors. It is true that Nas was shocked when he saw how Big was coming up with entire verses in his head, without the need of a pen and paper to write it down. He was just flowing over every beat that they played in the background, and that apparently made Nas gain a lot of respect for him as an MC. While Nas was struggling to come up with something, Big was just vibing to the beat and spitting the craziest lines with long rhyme chains off the top of his head.
Stick up, it's a stick up. We could have illed out on that, man. We could have illed out, went crazy. Niggas would have been like, oh God. But it is the ultimate freestyle shit, though,
Come on, man. I knew I had to tell a story that he didn't write because I never heard anybody say that before about him. So I knew I went to Hot 97 to say that, and then I just started hearing it come out because I knew everybody that knew him knew he didn't write like. Right. I just saw him just make it up on his own, so right in his head. So, you know, witnessing that genius, I just went home. I just went home.
And Nas is basically the only credible source, at least for me. He talked about getting too high and that he was struggling to come up with bars, while Big was spitting lyrics like a machine gun. He put up the beat and I started writing, but he started smoking this shit, probably some shit from Halsey. So we kind of like lit and I'm like, yo, I ain't got nothing. You know what I'm saying? This is over today. You got something? He's like, yeah. He's like, damn, I feel good to fit. Damn, it feels good to put people up on it.
Damn, it feel good to see people up on it. Flip 2 keys in 2 weeks and didn't flaunt it.
I was like, wait, where's that from? I'm writing it now. And he didn't have no pen and paper. So I knew it was a wrap for me that night. And, you know, he went on and did that without me. So Big actually laid down his verse, but they scrapped the whole song when Nas didn't come back to finish it. Big's lyrics were used 3 years later on Diddy's album No Way Out,
on the song Young G's, which also features Jay-Z. The verse was reused on numerous remixes, like on the Duets album in 2005. Anyway, after the Gimme the Loot remix was cancelled, Big and Nas didn't speak with each other for a long time, and from that point on, a friendly competition was developing. But Nas wasn't the only rapper that he was competing with. Big blowing up so fast made Raekwon from the Wu-Tang clan feel slighted, cause up until this point, he was the quote-unquote rotund mafioso rapper of the 90s that embodied the voice of New York. And now all of a sudden Biggie was making headlines, outselling everybody on the East Coast, and more or less taking Ray's spot, or at least that's what the impression was.
Anybody could rhyme, you know what I'm saying? But it's what you saying that makes a person know about you know what I'm saying, and know what type of person you is.
There's a common misconception that Big and Ray actually were cool in the beginning, and that they had a falling out later on. In '94 they appeared on a song together called Stop the Brakes, which was on one of Ron G's mixtapes. The song also featured verses by KRS-One and Killer Sin. But Big and Ray were never in the studio together. They just gave Ron G their verses, and he put it together.
Big and I hit blunts performing at the Arc. Next thing you knew, Big Blue when all the balling starts.
I want the riches. Okay, stay where you at, man. Don't get my shot. Get on the other side.
Big continued to grow commercially and status-wise in '95, releasing highly successful singles, remixes, and he even put out a group album with his crew Junior Mafia to put on some of his people, like for example Lil C's and Lil Kim. Nas formed his own group about a year later called The Firm, which was supposed to counter and outshine Junior Mafia, with young and promising talents like AZ, Nature, Comega and Foxy Brown, who was supposed to be Lil Kim's biggest competition for the Queen of Hip Hop title. Nas and Big both wanted the crown for themselves, while having a queen next to them. They started to compete on multiple levels: who had the best group, the best lyrics, the best albums, the best videos, the highest amount of sales, connections, and the biggest influence on the game. But it was still all friendly competition at this point.
He had Kim and his crew. I found Fox, only niggas in New York with #1 charts.
On June 6, 1995, Biggie released his One More Chance Stay With Me remix with his wife Faith Evans, which peaked at #2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and topped the charts for the hot R&B and hip-hop songs, which made him appear on the cover of the Source magazine in July '95, and they crowned him the King of New York. This was a turning point for all the New York MCs mentioned so far. Everybody wanted the title for themselves, and the magazines at that time had a huge impact on the game. Every headline was able to change the climate in hip-hop. The most infamous headline was definitely the one on Vibe magazine's cover the following year, where they added fuel to the fire during the height of the East Coast-West Coast war, and Big was once again in the middle of all that. A lot of MCs in New York felt like they were better than Big. He became a target from that point on. It only took about a month until he got dissed by another top-tier MC. On August 1st, 1995, Raekwon the Chef released his classic album Only Built for Cuban Links, which was a highly influential mafioso rap album that outsold both Illmatic and Ready to Die, at least in terms of sales in the first week. It shipped around 130,000 copies in the opening week, which is more than both albums sold combined, and it debuted on #4 on the Billboard 200 charts. Now, both Illmatic and Ready to Die ended up selling more in the following years, but it was still a platinum album that put him up there with Big and Nas in terms of status.
Big was ahead of his time, him and Raekwon, my niggas, but dig it, they couldn't get along.
Niggas be biting mad styles and shit for niggas, man. Yeah. So I be hating, man. I can't stand a fucking biting ass nigga.
The album contains a skit called Biters, in which Raekwon the Chef and Ghostface Killer discuss how certain rappers in the industry bite, in other words copy or steal, from others before they can shine. After everyone in hip-hop speculated on who they were talking about in that skit, it was later confirmed that they were taking subliminal shots at the Notorious B.I.G.
Want to use your lines all ahead of time before you even get a chance to shine on your own shit.
Biting used to be inexcusable in hip-hop. For some people it was even worse than just being whack. I know it's different now, but back then it wasn't acceptable. And nobody had a problem with calling people out for stealing from someone else.
We was taught in hip-hop, you know, biting niggas shit or getting too close to a nigga's shit is a no-go. So what he stood for, what he meant, is like, yo, we seen that already. Why come behind it and do something in the same way?
Raekwon was accusing Big of copying his style, the way he was talking, his slang, his overall mafioso image, putting it on his album before Ray even had a chance to make his debut. cause he felt like he was the originator of that style.
They be coming with your words and shit. They hear you say one word, then here they come with the word, trying to flip it and bounce it and shit on some bullshit.
Ghostface is accusing Big of using words that other MCs have popularized or even invented. There are people who say that he stole Nas's lines from Life's a Bitch on the Illmatic album, and that he used those on his own songs, which were more commercialized than anything Nas put out.
I'm saying that's what this is all about, right? Clothes, bank rolls, and hoes, you know what I'm saying?
Chopping O's, smoking line optimals, money holes and clothes, all a nigga knows.
This accusation is false, by the way. Big did not take this line from Nas. He used money holes and clothes lines even before Nas made his debut. Like for example in a freestyle with Tupac in 1993.
Money holes and clothes, blood smoke coming out the nose, is all a nigga knows, flipping on foes, putting tags on toes.
Ghost also might have addressed Big's use of the term cream on the song Warning, which is an acronym for Cash Rules Everything Around Me, which originated from the Wu-Tang Clan in 93. They had an entire song about it on Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers.
Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. Dollar bill, yo.
Damn, niggas wanna stick me for my cream, and it ain't a dream. Things ain't always what it seems.
No biting, man. We, you know, that was just what we wanted niggas to know about our style. Like, yo, this is our shit. We talk this way, so we ain't want to hear another nigga talking the same way we talk.
But then you got niggas, son, on the real, you know what I'm saying? Niggas is biting off your album cover and shit.
And that's when Ghostface said it on the purple tape. Bad boy biting Nas album cover weight.
Niggas bit off a Nas shit, you know what I'm saying? Well, niggas caught his little album cover, boom, then I did a Nas to that shit.
Ghost was referencing Illmatic's album cover, which included the photo of Nas when he was a kid. He thought that Biggie stole his idea for the cover of the album Ready to Die, which featured a baby that was supposed to look like Big as a toddler.
You know, Big had, around that time, you know, showed his album cover. And, you know, that became a conversation in the van sometimes. Like, yo, damn, didn't Nas do a baby picture now? He doing a baby picture. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like an enemy type of vibe going on.
It just came that way. It just came. It wasn't planned.
Was it the natural competition?
Yeah, because I'm like, first of like we don't really like bite off nobody's shit and this and that and the third or whatever the case may be. It just came.
When it was being said, it wasn't being said with malice. It was more like if Big would have did the baby picture first.
Yeah.
Then maybe we'd have felt like that about Nas. And he had a point, even though he said it the way he said it. He was in there, we was doing skits, we was high, drunk, bugging, and you know, we all competitive, whether we like you or not. It's just competition. If it goes somewhere, then that's something else. But it was always about the sport.
And it was so fucked up. That's what I'm trying to tell you, because he did the song with Meth.
We was titans. We was, you know, we telling the truth though. You know, it ain't like we just trying to start something. And I think a lot of people thought that we didn't rock with Big, you know, but we did.
He said he had no problem with Big and that he actually had respect for him. Big and Meth were close, and that's why they wouldn't want to start a beef with him out of nowhere. But rap fans saw it as a declaration of war.
Man, it's like these happy-go-lucky niggas, man, when they get on, man, they want to pop a little champagne.
Well, like I said,
you know what I'm saying? Every time you see him.
There's a rumor going around that Raekwon and Ghost were hanging out in the same club as Big, and that he was flexing on them with champagne and whatever else he had on the table. Raekwon allegedly couldn't stand him from that point on. He thought Biggie was fake and that he was changing his character after becoming rich and wealthy, going pop and celebrating his success by drinking Moet and quote-unquote sipping on champagne when he's thirsty.
Birthdays was the worst days, now we sip champagne when we thirsty.
I don't want niggas sound like me on no album, for real, because I'm approaching niggas, man, for real, man. I don't want nobody sound like me, man, for real, son.
That's how every member of Wu-Tang felt at that time. RZA even said that they confronted people who tried to bite Method Man's style, and they quote-unquote took care of them.
Bad enough, nigga. I don't want nobody sound like nobody for my claim, man. Keep it real, get your own shit, man, and be original.
Study. Go back and study. Study how Party and Bullshit was me before I met Biggie. You don't hear my style in this rap. Study how after I met Biggie, Ready to Die come out, his whole style changed. Study.
The album also had Verbal Intercourse on it, which featured Nas as the first rapper to appear on a Wu-Tang project without being part of the group. And Nas had arguably the best verse on the entire album. And you know how lyrical Raekwon, Ghost and the rest of the clan are. The Source magazine even added the verse to the hip-hop quotables in September that year, right after they crowned Big as the King of New York. Big, up until this point, never had a hip-hop quotable in the Source, Nas and several members of the clan were listed quite frequently, on the other hand. Method Man in August 1993 for his verse on Raekwon in April 94 with Cream, Nas in May 94 with Life's a Bitch, August 94 Craig Mack, who was on the same label as Big, more or less his competition on Bad Boy Records, September 94 Jeru The Damaja, with whom Big will have a beef with in the future, Method Man again in November 94 with the What on Biggie's album Ready to Die, which means the source picked Method Man's verse over any Biggie verse on that album, and then issue 70 with Big on the cover, crowned as the King of New York. You would assume that he would at least get a quotable now, but they instead picked AZ, a rapper from Nas's camp, with Rather Unique. August 95, GZA, another rapper from the Wu-Tang clan, and in September it was once again Nas with Verbal Intercourse, which again was on the same album that Biggie was getting dissed on. I have skipped tons of names here who also had a hip-hop quotable, but the quote-unquote King of New York didn't even get mentioned once, and that had a lot of people talking. Biggie got upset with Nas for being affiliated with them, appearing on the same album he was getting dissed on. I mean, Ghost and Ray basically called Big a Nas copycat, and it seemed like he was agreeing with them and picking their side.
It's straight blood sport out here. It's war.
Oh, when Ghost said he said.
Absolutely. Okay. When Ghost said that shit on a Ray's tape, oh, that was crazy. That was crazy, man, because it was something after that. I think Big called me. Yeah, Big called me, and he's like, yo, you fucking with them Wu niggas? You knew they said that shit? And he's like, yo, that's how you feel away, bro? Because me and him was tight.
Right.
So I was like, yo, I mean, that's Ghost.
Right.
Ghostface is Ghostface. There's no love lost. I didn't know he was gonna say this shit.
We had a certain respect for Nas. We was one of the guys that really rooted for Nas to be that guy in New York City, one of the illest MCs. So it was a love thing that was going on. And I guess we didn't really know that Nas had a super relationship with Big neither.
And he was a little disappointed because he wasn't trying to bite off my shit. No, just in general, because he wasn't coming at it like that. Because if you listen to his album, he tell a whole story and shit. So I didn't look at it like that. It was just competition at that time. So at that time, I was riding with that a little bit because it was competition.
Big told me Ray was stealing my slang, and Ray told me out in Shaolin Big would do the same thing, but I borrowed from both them niggas.
Now, 2 days after the album Only Built for Cuban Links was released, the 1995 Source Awards took place. And there we had another incident that was a game changer. Suge Knight, label boss of Death Row Records on the West Coast, publicly dissed Puff Daddy from Bad Boy Records on stage, and more or less turned the brewing East-West conflict into a war.
Any artist out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star and don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the videos, all on the record, dancing. Come to Death Row.
They were all getting booed that day, even the group Outkast, which wasn't even from the West Coast. So Biggie's camp was once again getting competition. Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, The Dogg Pound, Lady of Rage, and everyone else from Death Row, or the West Coast I should say. Big was not only getting pressured by rappers on the East Coast, but now also from the West. Everybody was competing with Big at that point, especially after him winning 4 awards that day. New solo artist, lyricist, live performer, and album of the year.
I knew I was going to win something. I'm hoping I'm still going to win the album of the year. That's what I wanted more than anything. That the best performance, I didn't think I was going to win that. And I definitely think I was going to win lyricist with Nas on it. But I just want the best album, that's it, because I know that was tight.
Big defeated Nas in the category for Best Lyricist of the Year. And the Source also picked Ready to Die over Illmatic. Nas didn't win in a single category that day. And some people claim that he was very angry about Big taking all the awards. That day, Big and Raekwon also bumped into each other.
First time I actually seen Big was around the time everybody thought we had a real issue going on or whatever. It was just really friendly competition, but I had seen him behind the curtain at the Source Award.
This was just 2 days after the disc got released, before it became the biggest headline in hip-hop. Ray told him that the skit was quote-unquote about nothing, and that Big was one of the illest MCs. He showed him respect and more or less apologized.
You know, we talk like gentlemen. I could tell that this is a stand-up dude, you know, for even approaching me about it, you know what I mean? Like, that's how I would have did it. But he was real humble and real polite and respectful. and God bless the dead, I told him, like, yo, you our brother, man. That wasn't nothing. You know how we do it. It's competition. We all at our best, and you know, that was it.
Ray said Big was speaking like a gentleman, didn't get mad or try to start an argument. He just wanted to know the reason why that skit was on the album, and Ray told him to not take it serious. He added that Ghostface was just speaking his opinion and not trying to start a beef. Ray got caught up in it cause it was on his record. He wasn't trying to start a beef cause that would be quote-unquote too corny, cause Big was cool with Meth. Them dissing Big ironically didn't affect Method Man's relationship with him. Method Man is cool and gets along with everybody. That's a RZA quote actually. He didn't want to get involved. They both saw each other on multiple occasions, in club performances, studio sessions, and just to hang out. Puffy even did a remix for Meth in '95, and it contains a repeated sample from Biggie's Me and My Bitch from the Ready to Die album. But there's also a story of Pistol Pete saving Biggie from getting jumped by the Wu-Tang Clan.
The whole Wu-Tang one day was at, I forgot what club on the west side, and it was crazy. All them dudes wanted to act like they wanted to jump on Big coming through. During that time, during that era, you know, Biggie had some problems with Wu-Tang. These guys trying to front on Biggie and shit like that, man. You know, like, Wu-Tang Clan was to be deep as fuck. I'm talking about, you know, deep as 100 people. Like, that's a lot of people. So we in the club, I'm there with 4 or 5 guys, you know, and they got the knife inside.
Yeah, sure, they got it in.
They got it in. And outside we got, you know, 5, 10 guns, you know, going around and shit like a cab, just waiting for us to come out so they could pick us up. Boom, I met Big, and I was like, come on, let's go. What you want to do? He was like, nah, let's chill out here, you know. I guess it was part of him not being pussy, like, I'm not leaving right now, you know. And he got to the point where he was like, what's up? They wanted, you know, we go outside, wait for any of these guys, you know, Wu-Tang, I don't care who. Raekwon was at in the opposite, you know. Raekwon was Wu-Tang Clan. Yeah. So we was actually like waiting for Raekwon outside, like fuck him too.
So we like, yo, this shit could either get on some physical shit or it could get on some lyrical shit.
Biggie wrote an entire diss track directed at Raekwon the Chef, even called him out by name, which was very unusual for him to do, cause Big is the king of subliminal disses. He normally avoided mentioning people's names on records. He was very strategic. Puffy only cared about record sales, awards and plaques, which Big had plenty of. He won 2 more awards at the end of the year on top of the 4 Source Awards he already won. Namely the 2 Billboard Awards Rap Artist of the Year and Rap Single of the Year for his One More Chance remix with Faith Evans. Big was the biggest thing on the East Coast, and Puff wanted him to beat his competition success-wise instead of in a lyrical war, where he would basically promote opponents by mentioning their names on his multi-platinum records. But Big, as an MC, couldn't let it slide and wanted to get everything off his chest. He gave his best to respond to everyone that tried to cross him. The unreleased Raekwon diss track might have included lines that were directed at the entire Wu-Tang Clan. Jacob York, who was the Junior Mafia affiliate, didn't want to reveal who else he was dissing, which, for me at least, implies that he did diss someone else other than Ray. That might have also been the reason why he asked York to erase the song. He was cool with Meth, shook hands with Ray, and the remaining members, aside from Ghostface, didn't really do anything to be involved in an all-out war. But the song would have definitely been released if Big didn't change his mind in the last second. Anyway, on October 12, 1995, Tupac finally got released from the Clinton Correctional Facility in New York. Suge Knight, the guy who basically declared war against Bad Boy Records during the Source Awards 2 months earlier, bailed him out for $1.4 million. Pac became part of the Death Row family and ultimately Biggie's biggest rival and competitor. Big had enemies on both coasts now, and this put a lot of pressure on him. But his album Ready to Die was still doing high numbers. By the time Pac was released, it was certified double platinum. The highest selling lyrical rapper on the East Coast at that moment in time. But on February 13th, 1996, Pac dropped his All Eyes on Me comeback album, one of the first double albums in hip-hop history, and he took Big's #1 spot in just a span of months. It sold 566,000 copies in the first week, and was the second album to go #1. In just 2 months it was certified 5 times platinum. So Big was slowly losing his status in the game, the West was back on top. His anti-Biggie campaign was a full success. Pac changed the game in just a couple of months after getting released from jail. Another decisive blow was the release of the diss track Hit 'Em Up on June 4th, which also featured the Outlaws. One of the greatest diss tracks of all time. Pac did his best to destroy Biggie's player and mafioso image that Raekwon, Ghost and other rappers were criticizing. He tried to show the world that Death Row is the #1 gangster rap label and that no other label can come close. But on the East Coast, more and more mafioso rappers started to emerge, and they all wanted that #1 spot for themselves. Jay-Z, who at this point was the smallest of the rappers mentioned in terms of popularity, status and commercial achievements, was about to release his debut album Reasonable Doubt, on which the Notorious B.I.G. was featured. Big was like a big brother to Jay. Some even say he was more or less his mentor, and Jay his little sidekick. But they were very close, and even thought about forming a group together called The Commission.
If Big had survived, y'all would've got The Commission.
They wanted Nas on Reasonable Doubt, but he refused to appear on the album, which more or less confirmed Biggie's presentiment that Nas was trying to avoid him and his camp, keeping his distance while collaborating with people who Big had a problem with. And a week after the release of Reasonable Doubt, Nas, who was now Biggie's biggest competition on the East Coast, released his sophomore album It Was Written. He achieved to release the #1 album before Big, which sold around 270,000 copies in the first week and went double platinum in just 2 months. In terms of first week sales and chart performance, he was still behind Tupac, but he managed to surpass Big, who was on his radar at that time. Ready to Die went double platinum a year prior, but Nas had accomplished this in a much shorter amount of time, although it's worth to note that the sales dropped drastically afterwards. It took 5 years for It Was Written to sell another 130,000 copies. So while the album reached 2.13 million sales in 2001, Ready to Die's performance stayed consistent, and it went triple platinum in '98. A year later, in '99, it was already 4 times platinum. But the perception was that Nas successfully outsold Big, who even congratulated him for his success. Big called him the day he heard the news of the album going platinum, and told Nas that he finally got that monkey off his back. Ironic, because that was the same album on which Nas dissed Big for being the fake king of New York, and that the crown is meant for him.
Fake thug, no love, you get the slug. See before gusto, your luck low. I didn't know till I was drunk though.
Probably the most memorable opening lines in rap history. According to Nas, the whole song was aimed at Big, but the one who took offense to it the most was Tupac. I did a whole beef analysis for those two, which you should definitely check out.
The good F-E-L-L-A, verbal AK spray.
The Mo Wet and Alizé keep me pissy.
A glass of Zay making mad Cassius Clay.
Nas is saying that it's the alcohol that makes Big think he's tougher and more dangerous than he actually is. Ghost and Ray addressed something similar on the Purple tape, if you remember.
They want to pop a little champagne.
Well, like I said,
you know what I'm saying? Front on the front for me, man. You gonna play that role, man? Play it though.
But the most interesting line was the following.
Let me let y'all niggas know one thing. It's one life, one love, so there can only be one king.
This right here is a direct response to the infamous Source cover with Big labeled as the King of New York. It was actually a quote by Pablo Escobar, one of Nas's biggest role models. He even called himself Escobar on numerous projects that followed. So it was the rap version of Pablo Escobar versus Frank White. A real drug lord versus a movie character. Big has no chance of becoming the King of New York as long as Nas is in the game. That was the message. And then he raps about friends becoming strangers in the last lines of the second verse, which could be another subliminal shot.
But a thug changes, and love changes, and best friends become strangers.
I already explained their relationship in the beginning. They were close before Big blew with Ready to Die, but they did somewhat become strangers over time. Nas said that Big didn't call him until after the release of It Was Written. So 2 years of silence, which is kinda conflicting with the story of Big calling Nas when Raekwon and Ghost dissed him on the Purple tape. So he either got the timeline mixed up, or the angry phone call happened when he wanted to congratulate Nas on going platinum. The outro of the song also contains a reference to the Raekwon diss on the Purple tape, which started the whole beef. Big was always wondering how Nas really felt about those accusations, and now he got his answer.
Y'all fake niggas trying to copy, better come with the real though. Illmatic nigga.
Nas apparently agreed that Big was a fake copycat, and it seems like he's inviting Big to a battle.
Fake ass niggas, yo. Bringing shit, man, live, man.
Nas also took shots at him on the remix of Affirmative Action, which also featured this group The Firm.
I take the crown off the so-called king of the town and lock it down, yeah.
If you're gonna act like you a gangster or a G or the king of New York, I'm gonna expect that. And when you don't come through, then I'm gonna wanna crush your empire. And that's what it's time for.
Big was definitely not just Alfred Hitchcock. He was Stanley Kubrick. He was Langston Hughes. He was Donald Goins. He was the one. He was the one. He had more than just rap. He had the look. He had the presence. vocal presence and physical presence on the stage, he looked like a king. He's a true king of hip-hop.
But of course, in a highly competitive music genre like hip-hop, nobody would be satisfied to share the same throne with other people. Everybody wanted to be the undisputed number one. And in order to get that title, you needed everything. Record sales, the best albums, the best lyrics, and of course, the respect from all your peers.
There's many levels of it. There's your voice, there's the words you use, there's the slang you use, there's your flow, and a couple of other things, and then you just have to be able to throw it around the track the right way at the right time. It's timing, it's metaphors, you know, so it's all about the gift of gab. You know, the gift of gab gets you anywhere.
Some people in hip-hop accuse Nas of selling out within the community after his sound became more commercial with his second album. Others criticized him for the change in style. While Illmatic was just a hardcore hip-hop album, it was written embraced mafioso and gangster themes. Kinda like Biggie once he became more successful, which Raekwon and Ghost initially criticized. So Nas was technically doing the exact same thing. But Biggie had that transition earlier with Junior Mafia and all the music videos for Ready to Die, which came out even before the Cuban Links album.
He lives by the rules of the game. He lives off a mafia image. I'm bringing him, showing how he totally disregarded the rules of the game, and he's everything but a mafia nigga.
Reinventing it.
Right, I'm showing. You know what I mean? If anybody's a mafia nigga, me, nigga. I fucked your bitch, I took 5 shots, I went in your crew. I mean, I just what?
But anyway, Pac died on September 13th after being gunned down in Las Vegas, and Big had a near-fatal car accident shortly after. A day before that, Big got arrested for smoking marijuana. And for some reason, the Lexus truck stopped working and wouldn't start. They had to obtain a rental car, a Chevrolet Lumina to be exact, which was known for having brake problems.
And I was like, yo, what the fuck? Where the Lexus at? You know what I mean? Big was like, nah, fuck that. We're gonna take this car and ride low-key for a while until they fix the truck. But it was like the brakes was fucked up on the truck. Before we even got out the dealership, I ran into the dealer that got us the car. And I was like, yo, Big, man, I don't wanna drive this shit. He was like, fuck it, son, just drive. We just gonna ride low-key for a while, leave it.
I don't know when the hell to fix your truck, but I'll get us home before we seen in this piece of shit.
I don't care, sis, just drive.
And like 5 minutes, we was getting on the highway. We just paid the toll, and I was getting on the 95, getting on the turnpike going north. And we was turning around the corner, the shit just sped out of control. And we crossed the other side of the road and hit the rail. And that's how you fucked up his leg. And that's how I fucked up my joint. That's why I wanted to get in these fronts.
The accident led to a broken leg for Big and a broken jaw for Lil Cease. Big had to spend 3 months in the hospital and required 6 months of therapy to recover. He also had to depend on a cane to be able to walk. Big actually rapped about this on a song called Long Kiss Goodnight from the upcoming Life After Death album.
It still tickle me. I used to be as strong as Ripple B, to little C's cripple me.
Now, with Big lying in the hospital for 3 months, they couldn't finish the project to release it as planned on Halloween. But as luck would have it, we got an album that week by his rival Ghostface Killah. 2 days before Big wanted to release his album, October 29th to be exact. It might contain a few subliminal lines, but from what I've seen, they would be too vague to even be considered shots at Big. But take a look at the last 2 lines on Poisonous Darts.
My heart is cold like Russia. Got jerked at the Source Awards. Next year, 200 niggas coming with swords.
Raekwon didn't even get nominated in a single category in the 1995 Source Awards. Biggie was the one who took most of the awards that night. Ray and Meth didn't win a single award aside from Artists of the Year in the group category. And on top of that, the 1996 Source Awards got cancelled because of Bad Boy's beef with Death Row Records. So Biggie was technically part of the reason why Ray, Jizza and Meth didn't get awards. The next event took place in 1999, so Ghost was affected by this too. In the last line, Ghost talks about bringing 200 men with him to basically apply pressure on the organizers of the Source Awards and all the artists involved. It seems like he got a little frustrated by Big getting all the awards, but this might also be a reference to that club incident where the Wu-Tang Clan allegedly had around 100 goons with them to jump or to basically intimidate Big and his crew. But anyway, Life After Death doesn't come out on Halloween, and Big changes his plans for the upcoming project. Instead of releasing a single album, he decides to drop a double LP just like Pac with All Eyes on Me. And he wanted to outsell him to regain his #1 spot. But the accident made things a little more difficult for him. He lost time and opportunities for potential collaborations, like for example with Nas, cause they were supposed to meet and do songs together. Biggie wanted to record a diss track against Tupac with Nas and Busta Rhymes on it after he left the hospital. Busta, Nas and Method Man were waiting for him in the studio, and nobody wanted to lay down a verse until Big came. But he was still feeling weak from his injuries after the accident. The elevator to the studio where everyone was waiting was broke and Big couldn't walk up the stairs.
And Big was supposed to come up.
Yeah.
And Big didn't want to walk up flights of stairs, the elevator.
Yeah. The elevator was broke and Big had a car accident, so he had a cane. And he's like, dude, he said, I love y'all niggas, but I ain't walking up them fucking stairs with this bro. His shit was broke. Something was broke. He had a car accident.
So he cancelled the studio session and Nas didn't make it on the song, cause he first wanted to hear Biggie's verse before he laid down his. Biggie came back the next day to record his verse, but Method Man and Nas weren't there this time.
Yeah, that was a crazy session. That was gonna be some shit. Right. So I didn't lay no verse, but the next day Big came. And he did his shit.
You know that's the only verse that Big went at Pac?
Yes.
The only.
The double album, he had some verses for him, but you're right. That was the one when he went right at him. Right at him.
Yeah,
you know?
Busta played me that verse. I was gonna bring it here, but I said, I don't think I should.
Busta Rhymes ended up pulling the song from his album When Disaster Strikes, as he didn't want to add more fuel to the fire. But the track is called The Ugliest and was produced by J Dilla. They ended up using Big's verse on the Born Again album in 1999 for the song Dangerous MCs. Big not being able to meet Nas didn't help to squash the beef. And Big was now in album mode. He had to get a lot off his chest with everything that was going on at the time. You know, Pac passed, people thought Big was responsible for it. Some had doubts about him being the rightful king of New York. He was beefing with multiple MCs at once, like for example Jeru The Damaja, the group OGC, of course Ghostface and Raekwon, most importantly Nas. And he also felt like he had to lyrically respond to Tupac, the Outlaws and E40. He wanted to address everyone who was badmouthing him at the time. He was ready for smoke from all directions. But Nas wasn't supposed to get dissed on the upcoming album, cause Big still wanted to do songs with him. Called him on numerous occasions, but it just never worked out. Nas didn't appear on Ready to Die, the Gimme the Loot remix didn't work out, he didn't get on Reasonable Doubt, the collaboration on the Tupac diss record The Ugliest didn't happen, and now Big was getting rejected again. No Nas feature on the Life After Death album, as he apparently was too busy to get in the same room with Big. Both had a full schedule. Nas was still trying to promote his album with music videos and shows. He also had the Firm album to work on, so he declined Biggie's invitation to come to Miami to squash the beef on record. All he was left with was Nas dissing him on his multi-platinum album, Rain Ghost doing the same on the Purple Tape, and a diss record that destroyed his marriage and his status in the game. From the outside it just seemed like Big was too scared to respond to anyone, even though he's the quote-unquote king of New York. Even on Pac's posthumous album The Donk Illuminati The 7-Day Theory, which came out on November 5th, 1996, Big was still getting clowned for being a fake king of New York, and that was on an album that went 5 times platinum. So the pressure was on Big to respond to all that and to prove that he truly deserves that title. Big ended up adding multiple diss tracks to the album and tons of subliminal lines in all directions. Kick in the Door was hereby the one that was aimed at Nas, Ghost, Ray, and a few others like Jeru The Damaja, the group OGC, and even the producer of the song, DJ Premier. Nas Rain Ghost apparently knew about the existence of the song before the album was released, and there's a rumor that they were planning on recording a response record together. But Big passed away on March 9th after a drive-by shooting in LA, which occurred 16 days before Life After Death was released, so the response record never happened. Biggie's sophomore album debuted at #1 and sold 690,000 copies in the first week, which means he outsold both Pac and Nas in terms of first week sales. All Eyes on Me sold 566,000 copies, and it was written 270,000 copies in the first week. So Big got his #1 spot back and became the highest selling rapper with an album that went diamond in just 3 years.
Now the year's new, I lay my game flat, I want my spot back, take 2.
Anyway, let's analyze some of the disses on the album. The intro to the song Kick in the Door features a skit which is basically an interview with an artist called The Mad Rapper, who's ranting and whining about Biggie's success while not being able to sell records even though he has released 4 albums. This is of course a shot at all the rappers who were complaining about Big during the past years and those who were commercially flopping while being jealous of Big's achievements.
This is my 4th album. I ain't made a dime yet.
Biggie starts off by metaphorically pointing his finger at certain people in the crowd, and by telling those individuals that the song is dedicated to them. Just like an R&B singer dedicating a slow jam to all the ladies in the audience. Big is pointing at his enemies who are watching and tells them to enjoy the show, which will basically be a roast session just for them.
This goes out to you.
There are speculations about this part of the song having a deeper meaning to it. Some people suggest that the 10 people he's pointing at are real people who are about to get dissed.
Your reign on the top was short like leprechauns.
The first line is directed at Pac and Nas, who were on top in '96. Pac was gunned down 7 months after releasing his #1 album that put him on top. Nas' second album came out 2 months before Pac passed and made him come in second place. And after Pac's death, he became the #1 in the game for 6 months in total. But now with the release of Life After Death, Big is outselling, outrapping and outshining everybody while reclaiming the throne. Their reign on the top was short, and now he's crushing the competition, the so-called Willies, which was a shot at Nas. Thugs, obviously a shot at Pac. And Dawn is of course a shot at all 4. Pac, Nas, Ghost and Dre.
All of a sudden, now everybody Big Willie done did it. Come with it, get your head slitted or get your neck slitted.
Tupac called himself Machiavelli the Don in '95 when he joined Death Row. Nas was Escobar, and Ghost and Ray are credited as pioneers of the mafioso rap subgenre.
Recognize a real Don when you see one. You got to call me Francis MH, white intake like toast, so iron.
One of Biggie's nicknames was Frank, Most High, White, taken from a character in the gangster rap movie King of New York. Big is reminding everybody that he's the one and only king.
Was told in shootouts, stay low and keep firing. Keep extra clips for extra shit.
This is a reference to the song Shootouts on It Was Written, which is about a story with a character called Frank, whose only concern is money. Frank is of course Big's nickname, as I mentioned earlier. Nas was under the impression that Big changed after becoming rich and wealthy.
Motherfuckers mad cause I blew, niggas envy us. Too many niggas on my dick, shit strenuous. Who's next to flip on that cat with that grip on rap? The most shady, Frankie baby.
He had the game in a chokehold.
Who is the next rapper that will come out and challenge the king? Biggie wanted smoke with everybody at this point. And as the king of New York, with his quote-unquote grip on rap, he's more than ready to accept every challenge and to battle all his opponents at the same time. That's what he's trying to say.
You should know my stilo.
Stilo is of course a slang word for style, popularized in the hip-hop culture by Nas on his song New York State of Mind.
Y'all know my stilo, with or without the airplay.
You should know my stilo. Word up. I'ma tell you like a nigga told me, cash rolled everything around me. Shit, lyrically, niggas can't see me. I took the cream, moved to new places, new faces, fuck the screw faces. Just bring back the coke or the cream. Everybody getting cream, no one consider the leak. B.I.G. is making this cream. Bitches always say, what the hell does that mean?
Big purposefully used the words of his opponents after Ray and Ghost accused him of that exact thing, biting style and slang from them and changing character after reaching success.
They be coming with your words and shit. They hear you say one word, then here they come with the word, trying to flip it and bounce it and shit on some bullshit.
Went from 10 G's for blow to 30 G's a show to all G's with O's I never seen before, so.
I'm like, damn, what the fuck, man? It's like these happy-go-lucky niggas, man, when they get on, man.
Next he's using a double entendre, a sexual reference, and a metaphor for pulling the trigger on his enemies.
Jesus, get off the Notorious. Mean us before I squeeze and bust.
He continues the scheme with a simile to compare the heating of a metaphorical chrome barrel to that of a tea kettle.
If the beef between us, we can settle it with the chrome and metal shit. I make it hot like a kettle get.
The next line is another double entendre. You better get whose censure could mean that Nas is too soft to handle Big on his own. So it could be interpreted as an advice for Nas to go get Raekwon and Ghost as a backup. But it could also mean that he should go battle Raekwon and Ghost for starting the beef and putting them against each other, which would have a much better outcome for Nas. So 3 against 1, or Nas against his friends.
You're delicate, you better get who sent you. You still pedal shit, I got more rides, the great adventure. All I got is beef with those that violate me. I shall annihilate thee.
Rugged raw, kicking down your goddamn doors.
Something like kicking the door, waving the 4-4. All you heard was Papa, don't hit me no more.
Met the cow, putting niggas back in ICU.
Beef is when I see you, guaranteed to be in ICU.
He starts verse 2 with more metaphors and references.
On your mark, get set when I spark you wet.
Big shoots like a starter pistol, and just when Nas, Ghost and Ray start to run, they get shot and soaked in blood. So it's not a race, it's cold-blooded murder.
Look how dark you get when you're marked for death.
The metaphorical story continues, and Nas, Ghost and Ray are currently dying from gunshot wounds. With Marked for Death, he's also referencing a movie, by the way.
Should I start your breath or should I let you die? In fear you start to cry, ask why.
Big is now wondering if he should resuscitate his victims or if he should just let them die.
Lyrically, I'm worship, don't front the word sick.
Biggie won the award for the Best Lyricist of the Year and got picked over Nas, Redman and Big Mike during the Source Awards in '95. This verse also became a hip-hop quotable in 1997's May issue of the Source magazine. Nas didn't get a single award that day, while Big took everything home.
You cursed it, but rehearsed it.
Ray and Ghost marked Big's style, yet they secretly desire to be him and copy everything he does.
I drop unexpectedly like bird shit.
I think this line is self-explanatory, but could also be a reference to the studio session with Nas, when Big was spitting lines off the dome like a machine gun, and Nas was just dumbfounded and flabbergasted while not being able to compete. The next lines are about bad record deals and them not getting paid by the label the way they should be.
You herbs get stuck quickly for royalties and show money. Don't forget the publishing, I punish them.
This could also be directed at the group OGC, who were cool with Big in the beginning but had a falling out later on.
We was cool with Biggie and them. You understand what I'm saying? Junior Mafia, it was love there. It really was. But on top of that, Tech, he was for real cool with them niggas.
I punish them, I'm done with them.
OGC performed a song called The Storm for the first time at the Palladium. And Big and Junior Mafia were also there. Top Dog's verse interpolated lines from Shabba Ranks.
I can be as good as the best of us and be as bad as the worst.
A few days later, Biggie dropped the remix for Get Money, which contained shots at Tupac and a hook with the same interpolation.
You can be as good as the best of them, but as bad as the worst.
Some members of OGC and their collective, the Bootcamp Clique, felt that Big stole Top Dog's idea and accused him of biting.
Cause it's hip hop, you know, back in the days it's like, you know, when niggas really gave a fuck about hip hop, certain shit you couldn't do. Like, if you had the same name as another nigga, you might have to fight him or battle him. You know, that was just the thing, like, we was all hard on originality.
They were also close with Tupac at the time, with whom they would work on the One Nation album, which was supposed to be a East Coast-West Coast collaboration. Tupac was already dissing Biggie on records and putting actors that looked similar to him in his videos. So the group wanted to be part of the whole anti-Biggie campaign, and in the music video for the song No Fear, they had a scene where a fake Biggie Smalls and a fake Faith Evans were getting kicked off the stage by Rock from Helter Skelter. And Big, of course, saw this as a declaration of war.
Petty MCs who claim they got gats, frontin' with hoes and videos with pimp hats.
We was dead right. You understand what I'm saying? But I also feel we was right and we was wrong. First of all, we was young and we was immature about it. And if it's a problem, I mean, we from the streets. If it was a problem, we did a video.
But the fact still remains that you're just a stain on the bottom of my boots while I'm still stirring.
This would eventually lead to Sterang Wonder from the group getting jumped by members or goons of Junior Mafia at the D&D studios.
Yes, shit got violent at a certain point. You understand what I'm saying? But nobody died. Everybody's cool. Everybody's still pretty.
And they all ended up having issues with their label and their record contracts. So that's what Big could have meant with that line.
I always felt like Priority Records didn't know what to do with our movement back then. You know, when you got a dude who sell crack and he sell weed on the side, he don't really care about the weed. His real money is coming from the crack. I felt like we was Priority's weed.
I'm done with them, son. I'm surprised you run with them.
This one is directed at DJ Premier, the producer of the song.
I froze for a second when he said, son, I'm surprised you run with them.
Can we see that? So
you know what I'm saying?
He's speaking directly to
I
DJ
immediately
Premier.
said he's talking about, like, you know, if you know the streets and you know how to understand lyrics, you know exactly what it was.
Big is surprised that Primo hangs out and produces albums for Jeru The Damaja, who had a song called One Day, which is a story about a hostage situation where hip-hop is the hostage, as a metaphor for the commercialization of the genre.
So I go to the door, there's a note, it says we have hip-hop hostage with guns to his throat.
Jeru wanted to paint a picture of how he saw hip-hop at that particular moment. So I remember even when I spoke to Big about it, he was like, yeah, but he got to be talking about me because he said he had a Versace suit on. I was like, no.
And smack dab in the middle was hip-hop with a Versace suit on.
Biggie was my man from the hood, like, for real.
Right.
Like,
Tell him,
and you know, I think, and he just misinterpreted when I made One Day.
One Day?
He thought I was talking about him or whatever, but I wasn't, because that's my man. You know what I'm saying? I had an issue with Puffy at the time, so that's what I was talking about.
I immediately called Primo. I said hip-hop is in trouble. Meet me at my rest on the double.
And then they got into a big argument and everything, and they just never really squashed it to the degree. I mean, we're all past it now.
Right.
Everybody's cool.
If I recall correctly, I last saw hip-hop down at Bad Boy.
It could have been his friends gassing him to make him think it's directly at him, and it wasn't. We wouldn't do that to Big.
We'll see if Puff knows what's up, cause he's the one getting him drunk and fucking his mind up.
Puffy and Bad Boy are metaphorically making hip-hop drunk and fucking up his mind. That's why on Me or the Papes he said,
hoping that they'll get drunk off Moet or Cristal, but that's not my particular style and taste. My name ain't Puff and I ain't got loot to waste.
hip-hop is in trouble and Jeru's trying to save it. So Big felt like he had to respond.
He told me, he said, you know, I'm going to get at your man. I'm going to get out a few people. And he did. He didn't just get at Ru. He got at Nas. He got at Ray and Ghost, you know, on the third verse when you know, he was mad at Smith and Wesson. Well, not Smith and Wesson. He was mad at OGC. So he was including a lot of other people as well.
I think they got coming them because they nothing but dicks trying to blow up like nitro and dynamite sticks.
The last lines are about rappers who are trying to blow up and are mad at Big for having all the success everyone is dreaming about. The third verse is more direct and less metaphorical.
This goes out for those that choose to use disrespectful views on the king of NY.
This, of course, is a response to Nas, who had previously taken shots at Big and who claimed the title for himself.
Let me let y'all niggas know one thing. There's one life, one love, so there can only be one king. I take the crown off the so-called king of the town and lock it down,
The next line is directed at Raekwon the Chef, who took shots at Big on Ice Water on the Only Built for Cuban Links album.
Beat for white, pulling bleach out, trying to throw it in my eyesight.
Fuck that, why try? Throw bleach in your eye, now you're brailing it. Snatch that light shit, I'm scaling it.
So instead of just trying to do it, Big guarantees that he will do it. Throw bleach into Raekwon's eye so he gets blinded and can only read by using Braille. Big is also stealing Raekwon's cocaine to make profit out of it.
Then take all your assets, conscience of your nonsense. In 88, sold more powder than Johnson & Johnson.
These lines are aimed at Jay-Z. Big was dissing him all the time, on numerous songs, even on their collaboration Brooklyn's Finest, which was on Jay-Z's debut album Reasonable Doubt, but it was all friendly competition between them.
We're on tour, and I'm consistently playing Jay for him, and he was like, all right, he's good.
For Big.
He says, yo, I'm going to go do a second verse on Who Shot Ya. When I come back, you're going to say I'm the best. He's like, nah, but you're going to say I'm iller than your man.
Biggie added the second verse to his song Who Shot Ya, subliminally dissing Jay-Z.
Thou shalt not fuck with North Sea Papa. Feel 1,000 deaths when I drop ya.
He actually called him and spoke to him as if the two were beefing. He wanted to meet him and show him the song. Even gave him a physical copy so he can hear it and study it.
Biggs gave me the Who Shot Ya CD. He called me like it was like we had some kind of beef or something. He's like, yo, meet me on 125th right now. I jump in my car, you know, I'm heavy. Like, what's going on? Like with Biggs, I mean, I fly up there. He, you know, I get out my car, get in his car. He plays the song. Be like, yeah, here, you keep the it was a cassette tape actually. He's like, yeah, you keep that. I wrote like 4 songs that night. None of them was good as Who Shot Ya, but like I wrote like 4 songs. But it was just, again, it was that, you know, this friendly competition, like just trying to push each other to be the best.
I feel for you like Shaka Khan, I'm the Don. Pussy when I want Rolex on the arm.
For real? You said your rhymes better than anybody I've ever heard say their rhymes. And he was like, what the fuck are you talking about? So I'm the best. I was like, no, you're the best rapper I've ever heard. And he was like, so what does that make your man? I said, my man's the best MC I've ever heard.
You'll die slow but calm. Recognize my face so there won't be no mistake.
There are many stories of them going back and forth in the studio. Both could create and store entire verses in their heads without using a pen and paper. That's how they made Brooklyn's Finest and I Love the Dough. They were more or less trying to outshine each other every time they rapped together.
The engineer actually came and dropped the pad and put it right between them, and then Jay looked at it and pushed it to Big, and then Big looked at it and pushed it back to Jay, and that's the time they found out neither one of them wrote.
What Big also loved to do is to send shots by using certain keywords or by referencing things that Jay-Z said in songs, bringing up things that the two of them talked about or did in private. Jay played him a few records from his upcoming project Volume 1 In My Lifetime, like Where I'm From for example, and Big referenced those to diss him.
What's your name? Who shot you? My ties like Sinatra. Who shot you? Can't talk with a gun in your mouth, huh? Bitch ass nigga. Them rings and things you sing about, bring them out. It's hard to yell when the barrel's in your mouth.
So the rings and things you sing about, bring them out. It's hard to yell when the barrel's in your mouth. You crazy? Think a little bit of rhymes can play me? I'm from Marcy, I'm varsity chump, you JV.
I beat down brutally, fuck who you be or where you're from.
Cough up a lung, where I'm from, Marcy son.
Keep your hands high, shit gets steeper. Keep your hands high.
East Coast, West Coast, West Coast, West Coast, West Coast.
West or East Coast, squeeze toast, leave most in the blood they laying in.
What he also did is reference stories that Jay told on the song Dead Presidents, about him dealing drugs. Big made fun of it on Brooklyn's Finest and tried to sun him.
You're holding more drugs than the pharmacy. You ain't harming me, so pardon me. Pass the safe before I blaze the place.
I dabbled in crazy way without rap. I was crazy straight. Partner, I'm still spending money from 88. When I was pushing weight back in 88.
Conscience of your nonsense in 88. So more powder than Johnson & Johnson.
With Conscious of Your Nonsense in 88, Big was addressing lines on Dead Presidents 2, on which Jay boasted that he made enough money in 88 from dealing drugs. Big is seemingly unimpressed by the sales and the money he made, as he's been selling drugs since he was 12 years old. And now he's making more money in rap than everyone else.
When Jay-Z creates this whole drug dealer, drug lord, I'm a drug dealer, I'm a drug lord. These kids, and we gotta do it too, to be like Jay-Z. Not knowing that this is all made up shit.
Lost 92 bricks, had to fall back. Had A1 credit, got more crack.
Bricks is cocaine.
Yeah.
Cocaine and crack is different. Did you know that? So he said he had to buy more crack. What you said you lost the bricks.
It says I'm on love, I wouldn't believe it either. I be like Jay-Z's a cheater, I wouldn't listen to reason either.
This whole album is just filled with lines in which Big brags about being the biggest, richest, and most dangerous mafia boss in the rap game.
Y'all got the goal. All I make is one phone call. All y'all disappear by tomorrow. Speak my name, I make them dash like Dane. Niggas bleed just like us. I'd rather go toe to toe with all of y'all. Running ain't in my protocol.
He's the most deadly lyricist, has the highest amount of sales, his presence, the aura of a king, and he's not scared to lyrically battle anyone who questions his position in the game. He has lines for rappers in every state, friend or foe, nobody comes close. That's the message.
You wanna get on, son? You need to ask me.
If you want to be successful in both the drug business and as an MC, you will need permission from the king of rap, Biggie Smalls himself.
Ain't no other kings in this rap thing, they siblings, nothing but my children. One shot, they disappearing.
Big once again sunning his competition, Nas, Ray and Ghost in particular, who are all looking up to him in this metaphor. This is once again a response to the message.
It's ill when MCs used to be on cruddy shit, took home, ready to die, listen, study shit.
Biggie and Ray are mafioso rappers. They had the whole mafia boss, Dawn and Capo image. Nas on his first album, Illmatic, didn't sound like that. But he also became a mafioso rapper later on when he released It Was Written, 2 years after Ready to Die came out. Just like Big on Ready to Die with Big Papa, One More Chance and Juicy, Nas and Ray tried to have songs for the radio on their albums, like for example Ice Cream, If I Ruled the World, and Street Dreams. So Biggie thought that both of them were copying his blueprint. Only Built for Cuban Links came out in '95, a year after Ready to Die. So Big was basically denying the accusations of Ray that he was biting him and Nas, and threw those accusations right back at them, telling them that they're actually biting him, his mafioso style, his videos, song concepts, and even his lyrical content. It's of course debatable if those accusations are true, but Nas actually admitted that Big was an influence for him, and I wouldn't be surprised if Big felt the same way about Nas.
But I borrowed from both them niggas.
One of the first mafioso rappers in hip-hop was a legend from the 80s called Kool G Rap, who was like a father figure in the game for many rappers. Biggie even called him the originator at one point. His style is heavily inspired by him. The same goes for Nas, who appeared on G-Rap's 456 album in '95. Mafioso rap wasn't even his thing in '94. That wasn't his style until It Was Written came out in '96. But he did have some references to the movie Scarface in the song The World Is Yours. I mean, the video and the title itself were clearly paying homage to that movie.
Dangerous, we good fellas. Niggas can't bang with us.
Mafioso and Kung Fu movies were always a huge influence on the culture. So I wouldn't say that Nas did a 180 and that he became fascinated with mafioso themes out of nowhere. He just evolved as an artist. But I would definitely agree that everybody was kinda taking inspiration from the top tier rappers in the game at that time. So Big most likely sparked everyone else in the game to get on his level and to not look soft in comparison. I mean, it was highly competitive. Everybody wanted to be the best, the toughest, the most dangerous, the richest, the most powerful, and the mafioso image is basically a combination of all that. And rapping about street life and things you can relate to has always been a part of hip-hop.
Now they on some money shit, successful out the blue. Frank's only concern was his papers. It's like these happy-go-lucky niggas, man, when they get on, man, they want to pop a little champagne.
Big accuses them of doing the exact same thing in their music videos and lyrics, and then suddenly starting to brag about their luxurious lifestyle instead of the street shit they used to rhyme about. On the song What's Beef, he touches on the same subject again and goes further into detail.
Sometimes I get kinda peeved at these weak MCs with these supreme baller like lyrics.
This is once again directed at Ray and Nas for songs like Ice Cream and Street Dreams, where they either dedicate entire verses to the ladies or brag about expensive cars, clothes, alcoholic beverages, and of course the ability to afford to waste money in casinos without having second thoughts.
No work release, purple M3s and jet skis.
Yeah, I squeeze 3 at your cherry M3, bang every MC easily.
My niggas rolling 10 M3s.
Yeah, I squeeze 3 at your cherry M3.
Cherry M3s with the top back.
Recently, niggas frontin' ain't saying nothing.
They were starting to compete with material things. Cars, jewelry, the newest technology. Nas even had a line against Jay-Z in '96 when he saw him drive a Lexus with TVs in it in the music video for Dead Presidents.
Threats, I'm sending them. Lex with TV sets the minimum.
When Nas saw Jay-Z's video, he got rid of his Lexus and looked for something better. And of course more expensive. It wasn't just a shot at Jay-Z, but also at everyone in Biggie's crew that rapped about a luxurious lifestyle.
We used to fuck R&B bitches and see who rhymes sickest. For every hit you made, more rappers afraid to come out.
Nas was not the only rapper that commented on the lifestyle that Big was portraying. Jeru had also something to say about this, which was probably one of the reasons why he got dissed in the end.
Now I don't push your Lex. Others had their turn to flex. Jeru is up next.
The song You're Playing Yourself by Jeru was basically a shot at all the criminal rappers and those who glorify mafioso or drug-themed lyrics while portraying themselves as the biggest players in the game.
These so-called players up in the rap game got brothers on the corner selling cocaine.
Basically everything Big represented and what almost every rapper in New York allegedly copied from him. That's why he felt like Jeru's anti-player song was directed at him. It's almost like a counterpart to Junior Mafia's Players Anthem in 1995.
Just the way players play, all day, every day, I don't know what else to say.
You're a player but only because you be playing yourself. With all that big willy talk hot, you're playing yourself.
Jeru also called these people fake hustlers and liars who would have snitched on themselves if all the lines they rapped about were true.
I never knew hustlers confessed in stereo.
And that's why Big took it onto himself to address all the criticism, and at the same time all the people who are getting away with copying him. He had a huge impact on the game at that point in time, introducing a style that is both club-oriented like Heavy D, and at the same time mafioso-themed like Kool G Rap. Many rappers tried to copy this blueprint after seeing how well it worked commercially.
Y'all niggas sound like me. Y'all was grimy in the early 90s, far behind me.
It Ain't Hard to Find could be a reference to a Tupac song on the All Eyes on Me album.
It ain't hard to find me.
He was at one point criticizing Big for being a fake player.
Well, Biggie is not a player. He's never been. He's never had bitches until he got some fucking money. That's a trick. That's not a player. He's
not a popper.
Tupac was grimy too in the 90s, but I would say he had the player image before him on songs like I Get Around in 1993. So these lines are not necessarily directed at him, but most likely at others like the Wu-Tang Clan. They released Protect Your Neck in December 92 and Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers in 93. Probably the grimiest and most hardcore rap group at that moment in time. But Raekwon wasn't a mafioso rapper back then. And he definitely didn't make songs about balling or building a drug empire like in the mid-90s.
Take them ends you make and spend them on the tutor, huh? One shot, I'm through with just beef.
They still need to learn, that's why they should first get taught how to rap on the same level as Big before stepping in his direction. Even if you bring your whole crew and plot against him, you and your clique are still out of his league. That's what he was trying to say.
Lightweight, fragile, my 9 milli make the white shake.
The only one on the East Coast that could come close at that time was Nas. But It Was Written was a step backwards compared to Illmatic, which might be the greatest hip-hop album of all time. His sophomore project wasn't quite on the level of the first one though, nor on the level of Ready to Die or Life After Death. But in terms of sales, he did come close to Biggie's debut album. Lyrically, it was very close between them, but when it comes to battle rhymes at that point in time, Big was probably more dangerous. Nas's sales dropped and his lyrical content worsened after It Was Written, while Big most likely hadn't even reached his prime yet. His lyrics improved with Life After Death, and his sales skyrocketed.
That's why my money never funny, and you still recouping, stupid.
Biggie concludes his verse by taking another shot at Nas, who apparently went broke after his lackluster commercial performance with Illmatic and the heavy spending for music videos, shows and promotion. I mean, it had 5 singles and 4 music videos.
Jealousy's a motherfucker, you weak, jealous motherfuckers. If you a jealous motherfucker, you just a weak motherfucker.
A huge portion of the Life After Death album was just Big trying to intimidate his opponents. On a song called What's Beef, he describes how a real beef with him would look like, and what Nas, Ray, Ghost, and everyone else had to prepare themselves for.
Beef is when you need 2 cats to go to sleep. Beef is when your moms ain't safe up in the streets.
There's one last song we need to take a look at. Actually, the last song Big ever recorded before he passed away on March 9th, 1997, and before the beef came to an end.
In the commission, you ask for permission to hit him. He don't like me, hit him while wifey was with him.
The song is called Victory, and Puff put it on his album No Way Out, which appeared in the same year it was recorded. Big was still in war mode, even in his last days, and he even made it more personal by going at his family, trying to hit a nerve and to provoke a response. He really wanted to destroy his career.
The son of Satan, they say my killing's too blatant. You hesitating, I'm in your mama crib waiting.
These lines are directed at Nas. Biggie is making threats and implying that he will take care of him and his family. You may remember how he defined the term beef on his Life After Death album.
Beef is when your moms ain't safe up in the streets.
And right here, he's telling Nas that he's waiting for him in the house of his mother. Now, the next line could be a double entendre, and if it is, then there's no denying that he's taking shots at Nas and his family.
Not taping, your fam, destiny lays in my hands, that lays in my waist. Your fam, destiny lays in my hands.
Nas has a daughter called Destiny, who at that point in time was 2 years old. Not only does the fate, or the destiny of Nas's family, lie in Biggie's hand by him being an imposing threat, but he also has his daughter Destiny in his hands, literally, while sitting in the house of his mother, who at this point is duct taped on a chair, while Big has a gun lying in his waist. He had multiple lines similar to this on Life After Death, but those most likely weren't directed at Nas. They were just meant to intimidate his opponents and to convince the listener of how dangerous Big and his people are.
I hope they know my nigga got the fucking kidnapped kids. Them in they ass, throw them over the bridge. Your daughter's tied up in the Brooklyn basement. Pistol whipped his kids and taped up his wife.
Again, these lines are not meant for Nas, but in combination with the one where he mentions Destiny, they can be quite intimidating.
Francis, M to the is H phenomenal. Gun rest under your vest, body abdominal.
Big continues with his declaration of supremacy by once again referencing the name of the drug dealer in the movie King of New York. But this time he adds the M to the is H, the Most High, which Jay-Z would notoriously adopt for his song
H to the is O, B to the is A. With shizzle my nizzle used to dribble down in VA.
Oh, that wasn't the only idea he took.
Wrong nights, I perform like Mike. Anyone, Tyson, Jordan, Jackson, action, back guns.
Michael, take your pick. Jackson, Tyson, Jordan, Game 6.
Your reign on the top was short like leprechauns.
Your reign on the top was shorter than leprechauns. My brain on the top is long like marathons.
When the Remy's in the system, ain't no telling. Will I fuck 'em, will I diss 'em?
When the Remy's in the system, ain't no telling when I fuck 'em, will I diss 'em.
Cause I see some ladies tonight that should be having my baby.
Cause I see some ladies tonight that should be rolling with Jay-Z. Jay-Z.
Gon' blast sweets first, ask questions last. That's how most of these so-called gangsters pass.
Squeeze first, ask questions last. That's how most of these so-called gangsters pass.
Isn't this great? Your flight leaves at 8, for flight lands at 9. My game just rewinds.
Isn't this great? My flight leaves at 8, her flight lands at 9. My game just rewinds.
On the road to riches and diamond rings. Real niggas do real things.
On the road to riches and diamond rings. Real niggas do real things.
Thug nigga till the end, tell a friend, bitch. Cause when I like it, then you go and fuck my friend, bitch.
Thug nigga till the end, tell a friend, bitch. Won't change for no paper, plus I've been rich.
Think about it while the streets you roam is Don P's and Christie's in the fridge when you get home.
Think about it while the streets you roam is Don P and Army in the fridge when you get home.
And throw down some ice for the nicest MC. Niggas know the stilo, unbelievable.
Take that ice up for the nicest MC. And please, yo, tell Big, he's unbelievable.
Thou shalt not fuck with Raw C Papa. Feel 1,000 deaths when I drop ya.
Thou shalt not fuck with Raw, me or he. Face 1,000 deaths for Mr. Sean Corey.
A lime to a lemon, my DC women. Bringing in 10G minimums, the condos with elevators in them.
A lime to a lemon, my VA women. Woke up Manolo blinders cause my condo with elevators in them.
Ain't no other kings in this rap thing, they siblings. Nothing but my children. One shot, they disappearing.
Ain't no other kings in this rap thing, you kidding? Nothing but my children. One shot, they disappearing.
Them rings and things you sing about, bring them out. It's hard to yell when the barrel's in your mouth.
So the rings and things you sing about, bring them out. It's hard to yell when the barrel's in your mouth.
Ha 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 ha. Check out this bizarre rapper style used by me, the B.I.G.
Check out the bizarre rapping style used by me, the H.O.V.
How much of Biggie's rhymes is gonna come out your fat lips?
I'm not a biter, I'm a writer for myself and others. I say a big verse, I'm only bigging up my brother.
You don't hear me in every verse quoting his shit or saying, yeah, nigga, I rock with Biggie. And it wasn't like that.
Anyway, Big also dissed the Wu-Tang Clan on here. Take a look at the following lines.
Militant, y'all ain't killing shit. Oops, Cristal keeps spilling shit.
This is a response to a verse by Ghostface Killah on the song Criminology off the Purple Tape.
Extravagant, resurrect the track and it's militant. Then I react like a convict and start killing shit.
Militant, y'all ain't killing shit.
Big was apparently not done with Ghost and Ray. He might have planned to continue the lyrical war on future albums and to provoke a whole back and forth. This time he calls them the F-word, but it's unclear if he's only addressing Ray and Ghost or also other members of the clan. Cause Ghost mentioned RZA in that line and Big said,
y'all ain't killing shit.
But it's worth to note that RZA produced a song for Biggie's album Life After Death, the same album on which Ray and Ghost got dissed. Biggie tried to create a rift between the members of the Wu-Tang Clan by putting Method Man, RZA and Capadonna against Ray and Ghost. He knew that rap fans would start gossiping about it, so that it gets brought up in interviews, which would add more fuel to the fire and create a conflict out of nowhere. Fans would start asking them things like, why the hell did you collaborate with the same guy that's dissing your homies? I thought you guys were a team, close like brothers. What happened to Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with. They could have accused Meth, RZA and Capadonna of abandoning and backstabbing them. And Biggie was fully aware of that. He was a strategist. He could have just squashed the beef with Ray and Ghost by talking to RZA, cause RZA is the boss and the leader of the group. He could have been the mediator in this situation. But Big had different plans. He did everything strategically and let RZA produce a Tupac diss record called Long Kiss Goodnight. This was another smart chess move, cause Tupac was actually cool with the clan. He had Method Man on his album All Eyes on Me, on the song Got My Mind Made Up, which was also supposed to have an Inspector Deck verse on it. And he even gave them a platform. Let the entire Wu-Tang Clan perform in Suge Knight's club, Club 662 in Las Vegas, where RZA apparently got punched and his chain snatched. Tupac loved and respected the Wu-Tang Clan, even tried to get RZA's chain back.
RZA was in the VIP area. We had a little VIP area room. And RZA got his ass whooped. He got his ass whooped in there. Where they ended up snatching his chain while they were whooping his ass, right?
I saw Wu-Tang, I saw Method Man, and like a couple months earlier, one of their niggas had got, he was in our club, 662, and somebody snatched his chain, you know, put hands on it. We got the chain back and found the niggas that did it. That's love. And I went to Method Man like, yo, we handled that. Me and shit want to talk to you. That was never our orders. No, that wasn't supposed to go down. We got the niggas that did it. We got the shit. Whatever. That's just me. You know what I mean? That's how we are.
They even told him, hey, if you want a fair one, you know, so this problem won't continue because we cool with y'all Wu-Tang dudes and you know, we got love for y'all. But RZA was like, no, I just want my chain back and I'm good.
So there was no beef between Tupac's camp and the Wu-Tang Clan. But Biggie, being the strategist he is, got RZA to produce a Tupac diss record after the target had already passed, so that it would create problems and trust issues between Death Row and the Wu-Tang Clan, as well as internal problems within the group. Cause again, this was on the same album on which Ray and Ghost got dissed. RZA and Raekwon weren't the best friends either. They had a shaky relationship. Even had a beef later on about something completely different. Biggie and Method Man had a very close relationship, and that's why he got caught in the middle as well. Just like Capadonna, who appeared on the original version of Long Kiss Goodnight.
Oops, Cristal keeps spilling shit.
This pun right here was added right after a subliminal diss in response to Ghost making fun of him for flexing expensive alcoholic beverages.
They want to pop a little champagne.
Well, like I said,
you know what I'm saying?
Ghost and Ray weren't the only ones who addressed this issue. Tons of rappers in New York had a problem with it. Like The Roots, for example, who recorded a music video for the song What They Do in 1996. And it was supposed to be a parody of a bunch of rap cliches at the time. In the video, they made fun of the whole champagne culture in hip-hop. The whole band was flexing with bottles and glasses of champagne. Everywhere. Indoor, outdoor, with the homies, the ladies, dozens of glasses and bottles, to make it look as ridiculous as possible. Making fun of the trend of rappers boasting about their lavish and luxurious lifestyles. Drinking champagne instead of water. Everywhere they go. And Biggie was the face of that trend. The Roots didn't know that the video was supposed to be directly poking fun at Biggie's One More Chance music video. They only saw the final product, and by then it was already too late to change it.
We didn't know that we were doing a direct reference to One More Chance.
Right.
So when we saw the final cut, they showed it to us, and I was like, oh, damn. Like, but it was too late. Like, we didn't have the power to be like, Kanye, like, scrap my video, like, do it again, take this shit. And we was just like, oh, well.
Guess we gotta put that out.
Biggie apparently got very upset about it, as he was the one who put Brooklyn onto the Roots. He always gave them props and shoutouts, and now all of a sudden it seemed like they were going at him, just like everyone else in New York, cause the one at the top at the time was the biggest target. Everyone wanted to battle him. 2 years prior to that, when they did the remix for Craig Mack's classic rap song Flavor in Your Ear, Black Thought, who's one of the members of the group, was under the impression that Biggie was trying to throw shade at him. He misheard the lyrics and thought that the line on Flavor in Your Ear didn't say invisible bully like the Gooch, but invisible bully like the Roots, assuming that Big was trying to attack them, cause the remaining verse was indeed a diss, but people at the time didn't know who it was directed to.
Invisible bully like the Gooch disappear, that moves you back to me.
Today we know that those lines were directed at Craig Mack, the creator of the song they remixed, the one on which Big was featured. So he was dissing him on his own song.
I see the gimmicks, the whack lyrics, the shit is depressing, pathetic. Please forget it.
Of course there was also competition between them, as they're both signed to the same label. Both wanted to be the #1 of Bad Boy Records. Flavor in Your Ear was one of the biggest songs of '94. But Big never liked him, always thought that he's whack and corny.
A tech nine, when I rhyme, must like climb on this bond. Your album couldn't with one line.
And Big thought that he's getting too much shine, even though he's not a top MC.
Craig on the album? Matt? Yeah. Nah, fuck that though.
You can't curse?
Yeah, you can curse.
I don't fuck with that.
You don't fuck with Craig. Alright. But I noticed, like, on the remix, Flavor in Your Ear, y'all worked
That
together.
was just something I had to do. You know what I'm saying? That's politics. Puff asked me to do it. I did it. I don't fuck with that dude.
You're mad cause my style you're admiring. Don't be mad, UPS is hiring.
When Big was asked to rate Craig Mack from 1 to 10, he said, "I don't really like him too much either. I can't give him a 0 though, cause he got some hot shit. But like 5, 4, since he on some different shit. Some shit I can't relate to. I'm from the hood. He's from the suburbs. So it's completely different shit. I don't really like the music too much. I like the beats, but it's not the rhymes for me. It's just some pretty kid shit."
You shouldn't have been the cop. Hip hop with that freestyle, you're bound to get shot.
But yeah, Biggie then clarified that he didn't say the roots.
Niggas say I said Invincible Ruly like the root. No, man, the Goots, different strokes. They ain't lyrical, but you know what I was talking about, right?
And also added that he got mad love for them. Actually shouted them out on numerous occasions and praised them in interviews. So he was definitely hurt when he saw the video.
He said in the source, like, you know, like, my feelings is hurt. Like, I was a fan of them niggas. I put Brooklyn on to them. I was a fan. I feel disrespected.
Biggie thought about dissing the Roots on Life After Death, but he decided to wait and see what happens. In the source he said he might not come after them, but he can't guarantee their safety when they come to Brooklyn.
Called the source and said, okay, I'm ready to send the response to Biggie thing, op-ed. And they're like, oh God, you didn't hear what happened, did you? Holy shit. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, Biggie's dead. And that killed me.
So they never got a chance to squash the beef. Another rapper who dissed Biggie for all the champagne in the music videos was Royal Flush.
First you drink Snapples, now you sipping Mo. Front ass nigga. Cause you living ain't no reason for you to be shitting fat.
He took it even further than just criticizing his lifestyle, by addressing the East Coast-West Coast war. And Biggie, as the quote-unquote king of New York, not responding properly and holding down New York. Especially after Snoop Dogg and the Dogg Pound kicked over buildings in the music video for the song New York, New York, and after Tupac started dissing him.
Man, you sensitive. How you let these cats shit on your residence with fake robberies? Who shot who with no evidence? Who shot you?
He also brought up Biggie's song Who Shot Ya? And the Quad Studio shooting in New York in November '94, when Tupac got shot 5 times and blamed Biggie.
You just a boy, you're not bad enough to the niggas get shot for no reason. Who shot you? So my whole thing was talking about how Bad Boy just let people come to New York and step on the buildings.
You just a boy, you not bad enough to compete. Your challenges, I'm busting off the guns with the silencers.
I just felt like Biggie was hot, man. Hold us down, New York, man.
Biggie and Royal Flush actually saw each other after the release of the diss song, when he was performing Brooklyn's Finest with Jay-Z, and Biggie was apparently looking crazy at him.
One time I was with Mike Geronimo, we went to go see Jay-Z, and Biggie was doing that song they got together, the Brooklyn one. And, you know, Big kind of looked at me kind of funny. Yeah, Brooklyn Finest.
They want to pop a little champagne. Like I said, you know what I'm saying?
Oops, Cristal keeps spilling shit. You overdid it, Holmes. You in the danger zone. You shouldn't be alone.
Some people think this line is directed at Big L, as he was the one who popularized the term danger zone, which was used as a nickname for Harlem.
You overdid it, Holmes. You in the danger zone. You shouldn't be alone.
He also called himself the son of Satan. Big L had a song called Devil's Son. It's not unlikely that the reference was made on purpose.
The son of Satan. They say my killing's too blatant.
Big L straight from hell, the motherfucking devil's son.
The son of Satan. They say my killing's too blatant.
This 139 Atlantic is the danger zone.
You overdid it, Holmes. You in the danger zone. You shouldn't be alone.
Big L and Biggie also had quite a bit of history together, thanks to the producer Lord Finesse, who was in the same group called DITC, Diggin' in the Crates. He also produced a song for Biggie's album Ready to Die. Before the release of that project, Biggie heard Big L's song MVP live when he was opening up for him. They were playing it in the legendary nightclub The Tunnel, and people loved it. Puff Daddy heard the song too. So in 1994, Puffy decided to remix the song One More Chance, which they had originally recorded a year prior, with a completely different beat. But this time they wanted to add Biggie's vocals over an instrumental that uses the same sample as Big L's record MVP. So they looped the exact same portion of the sample, DeBarge Stay With Me from 1983, and produced a song knowing that Lord Finesse had the idea first and that they're potentially harming Big L's career, as MVP was supposed to be the hit single that was planned to help sell the album. But the remix to Biggie's One More Chance didn't come out until June 6, 1995. By that time, Big L had already released his album Lifestyles of the Poor and Dangerous. But Biggie was the one who went platinum with that beat in less than 2 months. Number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, his biggest hit to date. They stole Big L's shine. Lord Finesse and L were of course mad at them. Finesse didn't produce any more records for him, and stated in interviews that if Puffy had the idea first, he wouldn't have used the sample. So they were of course upset about it, cause he had to change plans after that. The version used for the music video was supposed to be the one with the DeBarge sample, but Big L didn't want to put it on TV cause it sounded like Biggie's remix, which was already platinum and overplayed on the radio. So L's song and music video would have been treated like a cheap copy, as Biggie had the more expensive music video. People would have accused him of biting a popular song, cause most people, especially mainstream hip-hop listeners, only knew Biggie's version, and hip-hop was all about being original and unique. So he decided to use the Summer Smooth remix for the video, so that both songs could coexist on the radio and on TV without anyone's career being harmed.
Hey yo, spark up the Phillies and pass the stout. Make it quick, money grip, roll your asses out.
First things first, I pop freaks all the honeys, dummies, playboy bunnies, those wanting money.
Street brawl, I strike men quicker than lightning. You seen what happened in my last fight, friend? Aight then.
Most people don't know that Big L was dissing Biggie and Puffy in the music video. He put a guy in the video that was supposed to resemble Big, who can be seen in the background vibing to the song. But they never actually showed his face or did a close-up, even though that would have boosted his career, if that was really Biggie Smalls in the video. But they zoomed in on Lord Finesse, who didn't even produce this version of the song. Maybe that was a subliminal message as well, cause there was also a quote-unquote setup in the video, with a person that's supposed to resemble Puff Daddy, the guy who stole Big L and Lord Finesse's idea, who in the video gets lured into a trap, and they put the words double cross over it, which is a slang term for backstabbing and doing somebody wrong. And this is exactly what Puffy did. I mean, he was kinda known to bite the most popular records and beats. That's one of the reasons why he never got respected as an MC. MVP was also on the same album as the song Danger Zone, which, like I explained earlier, was referenced by Biggie on the song Victory. I don't think it's a coincidence that Biggie said Danger Zone and Son of Satan in the same song. After the passing of Biggie, Big L paid homage to him on the song Size 'Em Up.
Peace to Biggie and Pac, cause they really were hot. Rap game heavy hitters, it's a shame they no longer with us.
And also on Deadly Combination.
I be that young, pretty, fly, smooth, glorious kid, a bad boy just like Notorious Big.
It's unclear if both of them had a chance to squash the beef, and what their relationship was like when Biggie made the song.
No respect, squeeze off to all y'all diminished. Shootouts for 20 minutes until we finish.
And once again he's referencing Nas's song Shootouts, just like previously on Kick in the Door. Ironically, every time Nas is getting dissed. I don't think it's a coincidence. To this day, I feel like he could have crushed any MC if this was a full diss track. The beat is just perfect, and with Big's lyrical skills, one-of-a-kind flow and energy, it wouldn't be easy to make a comeback. Imagine if he used this beat to respond to Tupac's Hit 'Em Up, or against Nas's response record to Kick in the Door. Big was just a monster at that time, and I would have loved to see the result of that battle. He really wanted to end Nas's career. I mean, you wouldn't involve someone's kids and parents in a battle if you weren't planning on going all out. It's similar to the strategy Tupac used against Big when he involved his wife Faith Evans. So he might have taken some notes on how to effectively strike a nerve and hit someone where it hurts the most. Jay-Z was also inspired by this tactic and did the same against Nas by involving the mother of Nas's daughter Destiny in their beef in the late 90s and early 2000s. So in order to threaten and scare Nas, Big used Destiny and her grandmother. And Jay, Big's teammate, used her mother, Carmen Bryan. Nas's family, for whatever reason, always became a target. I can only imagine how dramatic and serious Big's beef with Nas would have been from that point on. Probably even more than his feud with Jay-Z. His sales dropped after it was written, and the music he put out afterwards wasn't up to par with his previous projects until Jay kinda pushed him the way Big did in the mid-90s. So would it be easy to destroy a Nas who was quote-unquote past his prime and slowly falling off, or would the battle spark him the way it happened in the early 2000s when Jay challenged him? I've been asking myself this question for a long time now.
I was in the house. Actually, I just got off the phone with him. And I was talking to him on the phone, and he was, you know, he just like so happy. He was ecstatic, like, yo, because I was supposed to go out there. Go, yeah, Playboy, you know, like just screaming on the phone, music in the background. You know what I mean? Oh, you missing this? You know, it's just like real happy. And then like I hung up the phone, and the phone rang again, like maybe like a half hour behind that.
That shit, I was fucked up. That shit hurt me. Like, I love Pac too, right? But Big shit, it just hit home more for some reason. Like it hit home and shit.
A day before Big was shot and murdered in LA, he met Ghost, Raekwon, and other members of the Wu-Tang clan at a bar. Big was there with a friend. Ghost saw him and wanted to clear the air. They shook hands and made peace.
Like before they did what they did to him, me and Ray and Cat was up in the club. I think it was the Key Club or something like that, remember?
Capadonna?
Yeah, and we fucked around. I shook his hand, met him and all that shit, because I was done with all that, with that shit.
After the skit?
Yeah, okay.
So, you know, one time we was in California and we had an opportunity to catch him at the bar in the Roxy Club on Sunset. And, you know, we just told him, like, yo, you our brother, you know, me and Ghost seen him, and, you know, he looked back, he was like, come on, have a drink, man.
And Big was at the bar having a drink, and he turned around like, oh shit, like y'all nigga, like yo, he's like, we was laughing and everything, and she's like, yo, don't worry about that bullshit, man. Come on, man. I know what it is, man. Come on, man. We New York niggas, man.
That night when we met him and shit, like, you know, dapped him up. I came in there, shook his hand, Ray shook his hand, Cat shook his hand, and on my mind. But even before I seen him, I wanted to like talk to him and squash that shit.
You know, me and Ghost felt like this was the time to really go approach the homie and just tell him, yo, bro, we love you. That shit ain't about nothing. Anything you need, vice versa, we here for you. We know you here for us.
I never got a chance to tell him like, yo, listen, part of self. You know what I mean? I'm out there, you know, whatever. Because at that time, when I did all that shit, yo, I'm 25. It's like, yo, who won it?
And Ghost just was like, yo, he just kept it real. Yo, man, I just want to say sorry, man. You know what I mean? Felt bad. Like, yo, I love this nigga. He one of us.
And right now, if I had the chance to tell, I'll be like, yo, Big, yo, listen, bro. I'm sorry, B. Pardon me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I ain't mean that shit like that or whatever. But whatever I was thinking at 25, it was street shit.
It is what it is, man. Competition at its finest. And let it go.
And that was it. And I wound up, I hear that they murdered him probably like the next day.
But anyway, rest in peace to B.I.G. One of the illest, man. One of the illest.
Raekwon later revealed that they could have worked on a collaboration album. Ghost at least wanted to do a song together.
I wanted to get ahead and just make peace. Like, yo, come on, yo, you know what, yo, let's get in the booth. Let's go do something.
They loved his music, and Big was also a fan of the Wu-Tang clan. That's why you had Method Man as the only feature on the Ready to Die album, RZA producing for him on Life After Death, and Capadonna appearing in studio sessions. Big and Raekwon only saw each other 3 or 4 times.
I mean, we've been on planes together, and you know, at that time it was like, you know, damn, like nothing being said.
Ghost later on said that after Big passed, he had no more inspiration. He's not inspired by today's music anymore. People like Nas and Big were inspiring and kinda pushing him to improve his pen game in order to out-rap them and have the illest lyrics. He hasn't felt the same way about any of today's rappers. Ray even said that he always looked up to Big, and that only Big, Nas and the Wu-Tang clan were holding down New York at that time. Nas and his group dropped the Firm album in '97, the same year Big was going at him on Life After Death and No Way Out. He didn't respond and had to let it go, cause Nas didn't want to disrespect the dead, just like with Pac shortly after he passed. Cause Nas also got dissed on the posthumous album The Don Illuminati, so he never got the chance to respond to any of that. They both had their little beef going on in '96. I did a whole breakdown for that specifically, which you should definitely check out. The question is of course how it would impact Nas's career if those two were still alive. How would he have handled the beef with Big while working on the Firm album? Would AZ, Comega, Foxy Brown and Nature become part of the feud, or would he have postponed the group album to drop another solo record? I mean, he also could have just responded with a diss single on the side, but I don't know how it would compete with all the disses on Life After Death. One song versus a whole diss album that went diamond. I think he would have to do more than that. It would be bad for business to beef with one of the biggest rappers ever and to not release a solo project for that long amount of time, cause he didn't drop another album until 1999, 3 years after it was written. It wouldn't be a good look for the quote-unquote rightful king of New York to get dissed and to not respond for that long amount of time, or to not come back with another strong album. Big not fully responding to Pac while he was alive made people think that he was scared of him. So something similar could have happened to Nas. I personally think that Nas's discography would be completely different if those two were still alive. But enough with the fanfiction and the what-if scenarios, let's get back to the real timeline. The year is 1999 and Nas is planning to make a comeback with his I Am the Autobiography double album. Now, the reason why he wanted to put out a double album was Nas once again trying to compete with Big and Pac. There was something like a beef triangle between those three. At this point in time, both Big and Pac had record-breaking double albums that are ranked among the best rap projects in history. Those being the now diamond albums All Eyes on Me and Life After Death. And Nas wanted to do the same, as someone who had beefed and competed with both of them after telling them on The Message that he's the one and only king of hip-hop. Even the Wu-Tang Clan had a multi-platinum double album called Wu-Tang Forever in 1997. Nas was lagging behind. All the big names from that era reached legendary status and had the first classic double albums in rap history, and even the newcomers were surpassing him in terms of record sales. DMX, 2 multi-platinum albums in just 1 year. Jay-Z, multi-platinum albums every year. But rappers were not just outselling Nas on the East Coast. The South, the West Coast, the Midwest. Rappers were going multi-platinum and dropping double albums everywhere in the US. So the pressure was on Nas to prove that he's not getting left behind and that he still could drop game-changing albums. But he failed to do so after most of the original sessions of the upcoming double album got bootlegged. It was one of the first projects ever to get leaked on the internet. Some of the leaked songs were released on the Lost Tapes album in the year 2002. Others are still unreleased to this day. He had a long list of tracks ready to be released, but he scrapped the whole plan to drop a double album and ended up releasing 2 single albums that year, I Am and Nostradamus. And the reason why he did that is because of the newcomer DMX, who just like Pac, managed to drop 2 multi-platinum albums in the same year. Pac did it in 1996 with All Eyes on Me and the Don Illuminati 7-Day Theory. DMX did the same in 1998 with It's Dark and Hell is Hot and Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood. Only the best in the game could manage to drop classic double albums or 2 classic single albums in the same year. Some people saw DMX as the next Tupac, and he was starting to outsell everybody. So Nas, who still wanted that #1 spot for himself, wanted to prove the world that he could do the same. 2 multi-platinum albums in just 1 year, just like Pac and DMX. But many fans have complained about Nas's lack of passion, especially on his 4th album, Nostradamus. There were lots of filler songs, and it seemed like his best days were behind him in terms of quality and lyricism. To this day, Nostradamus is one of Nas's weakest projects. And it might have been even worse if Big and Pac were still alive, and if Nas had rushed to drop a double album following the release of All Eyes on Me and Life After Death. That would have been horrible for Nas if the beef was still going on. Jay-Z even mocked him for his quote-unquote garbage albums 2 years later on his legendary diss track The Takeover.
Went from nasty Nas to Esco's trash. Had a spark when you started, but now you're just garbage.
His rivalry with Biggie transformed into a long feud with Jay-Z for the King of New York title. I did 2 videos on this, which you should definitely check out. a full beef analysis and a breakdown of Nas's original Ether verses. But anyway, back to the I Am album. Nas more or less made peace with Puffy after Big dissed him on the No Way Out album. They did a song together called At that point in time, Nas was slowly losing his passion for rap, according to many critics and Nas himself. Big was his competition, he inspired him to go all out to find out who's the better MC. He did an entire song for that called We Will Survive, which is a tribute song for Pac and Big.
It used to be fun, making records to see your response, but now competition is none, now that you're gone.
Nas was very humble and respectful on the song. He always paid homage to Big after he passed. Same goes for Ray and Ghost. You can see that there was a lot of respect involved, even though the beef got dirty at one point. They all admitted that nobody ever inspired them on a competitive level like Big did. All three complained about how soft hip-hop has become, and that nobody could ever compete with them the way Biggie did.
You can't kill nothing that's ready to die. You was like God to us in the form of Allah.
They even appeared on numerous remixes where they reused old verses from Big. Method Man, for example, appeared on the Born Again album in 1999 on the song Rap Phenomenon, and Nas had a verse on I Really Want to Show You on the same album. In 2001, Nas continued to pay homage to Pac and Big on his album Illmatic. He has a song called Ether in which he calls Big, Pac and himself the greatest rappers of all time.
Who's the best? Pac, Nas and Big, ain't no best.
This was a response to Jay-Z saying that he's a superior MC to Pac and Big and that DMX and Pac are not real lyricists. He felt like they only appealed to street cats. This was allegedly said during a party thrown by Steve Stout around the year 2000. Nas took offense to it and disagreed with him. He said that Tupac is the greatest ever and that the claims about him not being a lyricist were simply not true.
First, Biggie's your man, then you got the nerve to say that you better than Big.
In the music video for Got Yourself a Gun, he actually recreated Big's and Pac's final moments and paid his respects to the deceased legends. A year later, in 2002, Jay-Z released a double album called The Blueprint 2, which was a subliminal way for Jay to say that he's up there with Big and Pac, and that he could do what Nas failed to do. Be one of the few artists in hip-hop history to have a multi-platinum double album. Jay initially didn't even want to release double albums. He just did it to make Nas jealous and to show him that he's one step ahead of him, especially in terms of sales, cause double albums double the sales.
The gift and the curse, fuck that shit, the first shall be last.
The same year, Nas told a story on Last Real One Alive on the album God's Son, basically summing up everything that led to his beef with Jay, while mentioning his relationship with Biggie.
Had much Versace swagger, Big admired the Brooklynite, it took him in his iceberg the rappers.
Nas could finally drop a double album in the year 2004. It was called Street's Disciple and came out 8 years after All Eyes on Me. But it only went platinum though. Nas's album sales were dropping at this point. So he technically failed to drop an album on the level of Life After Death and All Eyes on Me, which are both diamond and far superior in terms of quality. Same goes for Jay-Z's Blueprint 2, wasn't really that great of an album either. But it must have hurt Nas's soul that he couldn't drop it earlier, at least before Jay-Z dropped his. He had surpassed Nas commercially and status-wise. The Gift and the Curse was basically Jay laughing at his face. And Nas releasing a double album right after that is proof that it struck a nerve. It was all about egos. Jay and Nas didn't even care about dropping double albums after that. They just wanted to follow Big and Pac's footsteps, as they had taken over the game with their releases. In 2005, another posthumous Big album was released called The Duets, The Final Chapters. Nas appeared on the song Living in Pain, and a year later, in 2006, Puffy produced 2 songs for Ghostface Killer's album Fish Scale. It contains a bonus track called 3 Bricks, which features Biggie and Raekwon. Puffy reused verses from the Life After Death album to make it official that the beef is squashed, and that the world could have expected more music with the 3 of them together if Big was still here.
He just showed brothers that dreams can come true. You know what I mean? He was a definitely ill artist, and he inspired us as being a 90s generation of artists that came out. And I just came to represent for him and show love.
On March 9th, 2011, Raekwon performed on stage at the Notorious BIG tribute in New York, and Nas continued to show love to Big on multiple albums.
Maserati pumping, Biggie the great legend blasting. I'm after the actors who played Faith Evans. The matinee watcher, the good weather on the Saturday afternoon shopper, good gift copper, still miss Big Papa. Shoulda did that remix verse on Gimme the Loot for Biggie. Me, Jay, and Frank White is like Cole, Drizzy, and Kenny.
He's greatly missed, you know, to this day. He's one of the greatest ever, who ever touched the mic, ever, you know, period.